And welcome everybody to TNM Coaching Unplugged and Zoran Todorovic Interconnected Podcast. I'm so happy you are here with us today because we're going to be focusing on mastering coaching. And recently we had few podcasts when we invited different people to talk to us about mastering coaching, which is becoming a very important topic nowadays because a lot of the people are training to become coaches. You know, coaching is one of the top emerging professions in the world. The market share of coaching is growing a lot, and people are pointing their attention to coaching more than ever before. And with that, understanding what is the mastering coaching, understanding what do we need to do and who do we need to become in order for us to really become masterful in coaching. What is the path towards mastering coaching is all of the areas that we're going to be talking today with our wonderful guest, Amos Szeps. He is an amazing coach. He's one of these superhuman coaches, as I would love to say. He's specializing in CEO and top talent team coaching. He has worked and lived in the United Kingdom, and then he moved with his lovely family to Australia, and he's setting his coaching practice and business there. He's extremely capable, really bold, very interesting, sharp. He also comes from the artistic background, and he uses a lot of arts within his coaching as well. And I know he's a brilliant master coach, one of the best that we have on this world right now. So, Amos, welcome.
Thank you, Zoran. It's great to be talking with you.
Yeah. So you've been coaching for a long time, right? How many years right now?
Well, it's been 22 years since I first started coaching, and probably 15, 16 years full time I've been working as a coach.
So for somebody as young as you, that means that you started coaching when you're 5 years old, because right now you're in your early 30s, right?
So yeah, that's right. Yeah, early 50s. I'm turning 50 this year, but thank you for the compliment.
Congratulations. You don't look 50. You look 30 to me, so that's amazing. So 22 years in coaching, and I would love to kind of start from the beginning. What really pulled you into coaching? What was that something that showed up in your life and you said, hold on a second, this is something interesting that I would love to play with? What happened?
I was passionate about personal development, Zoran, from probably around 9 or 10 years of age. I used to sit on the couch in front of my grandmother, who is an amazing woman, and she was a single mother in the 50s, raised 2 daughters, started her own business, and was originally Catholic and very religious, but then fell into personal development and had all these books that she would share with me, and she would ask me questions like, what do you think is the meaning of life, Amos? What happens after death? And who do you really think you are? And what are we here for? And as a 9-year-old, I just loved her. I adored her. And this got me inspired around personal development. I read the books, and I did a whole lot of courses on personal development, so that by the time I was, I think it was probably 28 when I first started coaching. That was off the back of a personal development program, and I was coaching as part of that program.
So it was something natural. It was genuine interest that was inspired by your upbringing, especially your relationships, and you had love and passion for personal development that kind of pulled you into coaching to start with, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And my love for my grandmother too. Also, my father was an actor. You mentioned my artistic background, and he was quite an established theatre actor for about 50 years. Mm-hmm. But unlike most actors, he was a very analytical actor, and he was passionate about psychology and about human behavior, and about replicating human behavior truthfully on stage. So he wasn't interested in the song and dance and look at me, and he was interested in understanding what makes people tick and replicating that genuinely on stage, creating genuine emotion on stage, and affecting people, making them laugh and making them cry. And he was fascinated by why an audience would cry on one night, but they didn't the next night, or they'd laugh on one night, they didn't the next night. And so for him, the stage was his laboratory. He would go out there like a scientist and try out different things. And he learned a lot about human behavior and what makes people tick. And so that as well instilled in me this passion for understanding people and I guess that converged with my grandmother's influence to make me who I am today.
Beautiful. Beautiful when you have this personal family connection that inspired you in that direction. You know, it's lovely to hear that it comes from your heart and also from your soul. And at the same time, for the observation of the people around you, your grandmother, and your father, and how they influenced you to become who you are today.
That's right. That's right. So it's very deep and very natural, you know, and I say to a lot of people who are doing anything in life is, if you're lucky, and it took me until I was 28, you will stumble across something which feels natural to you, which you find quite easy and effortless, and you enjoy. And, you know, if you can do that for a living, if people will pay you for that, then it's a gift. It's an absolute gift. And that's what happened when I was 28.
So when you stepped into coaching at the age of 28 and you began coaching and you kind of started your path towards, let's call it, mastering coaching, when you look back in your development as a coach, what do you believe are the most important stages of your personal growth in becoming a master coach?
So it's a good question. So for me, there's two aspects to that question. There is the accreditation through the International Coaching Federation of Master Coach, which is one thing. And then there is developing as true mastery, which is an ongoing pursuit and which I have not attained and probably, hopefully, never will. Because I believe that your own development as a human being, your evolution as a human being is intertwined with this concept of mastery. And only when we master life do we become a master of anything. And we will never do that. So, but in terms of mastering coaching or becoming, you know, master level according to the ICF, I think that involves a lot of hard work. I think that involves humility, courage. For me, learning uncomfortable truths about myself and confronting them and confronting them and confronting them and confronting them until you can hopefully overcome them, or at least get to know them well enough that you can distinguish when you're doing them and when you're not. So, and you know, maybe it just starts with the commitment to mastery. You know, I was always inspired by expertise, by people who just, and it seemed like a really a way of having a meaningful life was to find a pursuit and to really try to get good at it, to be able to put aside the trappings, you know, the financials and the, you know, all the other things, and just try to master something. So I guess maybe the first step in becoming a master at anything is that commitment to doing so, you know.
Choosing it in a way, you know, committing to yourself, committing to the path. I also believe that, you know, and believing that's possible. I love what you said about the mastery. It's the journey of your life that actually you're hoping that you're never going to attain it, because if you keep on unfolding and growing and unfolding more, and it's the process that we need to enjoy of mastery. But you're absolutely right. It's committing to that and believing that's possible, because sometimes people don't even believe they can become master in anything.
That's true, you know, and if you are lucky enough to know somebody who's masterful in something, they will inevitably, one of the characteristics that I find in people who are masterful is that there is a humility there that people lower down the scale don't have. So there's an awareness of what they don't know. There is a curiosity and an endless curiosity about how to improve. I find that in senior level executives too, that if you go, the higher you go up, the very, very top of organizations, of leadership, you will find people who are more open the higher you go. Middle managers, I find the most difficult to contribute to and add value to, because it seems that at that level you get to a place where it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking, I'm good at my job, I'm getting a good salary, I'm a successful person, and that's it. And I don't need to know anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And there's only those rare few who seem to be able to remain open and curious, and those are the ones that rise to the top, the very top.
Yeah. So when you think about yourself and your skill set as a coach, what is the skill that you particularly love and you keep on practicing and polishing? That is, let's call it your super coach skill that shows up your mastery when you coach somebody face-to-face or in groups or in the workshop.
I think that I'll answer that in two ways. One is the gift that I think I have, which is natural and which I haven't learned. And the other one is the thing that I've learned.
Okay, so let's go with the gift.
Yeah,
what is your superpower gift?
I think the gift is something around presence. And I'm not talking about my devilish good looks. What I'm talking about is the presence in which other people seem to open up, and they seem to heal, and they seem to think differently. And I'm not quite sure I'm aware of all of the way that happens around me. All I know is that if I just relax and I tune into people, then, magical things happen. So my wife is always asking me, how did you know in 10 seconds more about this person than I've known them for 2 years? And you stepped at their doorway. Maxie's tutor, my eldest tutor, I stepped up to her driveway and found out all of these personal things in 15 seconds, just as I was. So that's a natural gift, and I'm very grateful for. The one that's
Hold on a second. Don't go further. Don't go further.
Yeah.
Hold that thought, because I really want to expand on this one, because I also feel that people who do know how to live in the present moment, and they can create what we're calling a coaching language, powerful coaching presence, being a gift or being something they practice and learn, have an amazing opportunity to really be at the level of mastery in coaching. Because right now, as I'm listening to you and you're talking about your presence, again, I can feel it as well, how grounded, centered, relaxed, available you are. And that skill of being able to be present in the moment right now, right here, with 100% attention and focus onto another human being while being relaxed, because you mentioned relaxation of your body, which is really important. It's something that you just said opens up people immediately. People feel that, right? They feel this congruent, coherent exchange and energy, so they can be more of themselves.
Yeah. And maybe that's it. The discipline, the gift, the skill of being in the moment, and having laser-like concentration whilst you're physically relaxed. I know your background, I don't know if it's public, but and we share a similar background in terms of performing arts. And I think, I spent years literally on my back doing concentration exercises and physical relaxation exercises. And so my concentration is pretty good. And in artificial environments, with a complete stranger, I can, like this, is, you're not a complete stranger, but it's an artificial environment, and that we're being recorded and these people are watching us and So being able to actually breathe and be relaxed and be present in this environment, I think, is a gift, but it's also something which you have to learn. And I think it's very, very underrated in coaching. We have the core competencies with the ICF, but I think that, and we teach this at TNM, is we spend a lot of time talking about your presence, and how you're being in this moment, and how you create this sense of availability.
Yeah.
I think it's huge.
Yeah, it is. It is. And now more than ever, because we're scattered, we have devices, we have meetings, we have Zooms, we have online, offline, we are, have social media. So if somebody doesn't know how to maintain their focus and concentration, I can see more and more people are getting pulled in different directions, and that takes away from them being able to be present in the moment. And we know that when it comes to master coaching, people will just feel that energy and open up and share. And then you can read them, you can connect to them completely different level. And this is what your wife was saying. How can you do this? Even if you don't know them, you know them for 2 minutes and she knew them for 2 years. It's just about that. Wonderful.
Yeah.
So that's a gift, right? So you see this as a gift. I also see it as something that you're practicing and polishing as well, being more and more present. And what was the other one that you chose to focus on and learn and grow and develop?
So it's something that I've learned and developed through performing as well as through coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And I would try to articulate it this way. I would say that you learn to listen beneath the words. In fact, you learn to listen to almost everything except the words.
Yeah.
And you learn that human communication is on multiple levels, and that the story that you're being given is the surface of the river, and that that's not the river. The river is actually what's beneath the words. And so the concept of listening to the energy of the coachee and listening to the subtext of the coachee and the unconscious desires and needs of the coachee and the physicality of the coachee and how you are resonating with the coachee, all of these things, all of these unconscious, messy elements of communication, which we call subtext in acting, actually. What's the subtext of the scene? This is what they're saying, but what are they really saying? What's really going on? This is what the coachee has brought me. This is what they want to work on. Okay, but what do they really want to work on? What are they really telling me? Not through their words, but through the way that they feel, or through what I feel in this conversation,
Mm-hmm.
And that's organic, and it's primal, and it's intuitive. It makes coaching a whole lot more interesting.
Yeah, the subtext makes it more interesting. Yeah, exactly. I jokingly, say to my clients, nowadays, because everybody's watching Netflix so much, I'm saying, what is the Netflix of your life, and what is the subtext behind your Netflix? What is the season 1, 2, 3, and 4, and what's really, really, really going on behind these characters? So when somebody gives you a story of their life, and you are tuning in and feeling the subtext of the story, you actually able to dive deeper into that river, but they're not really aware that what you know about the deeper meaning of what they're sharing. Maybe they're not even aware themselves. Maybe they don't even know. They're just sharing the superficial story. How do you invite them, challenge them, or even confront them to begin to see what is the real story, what is the subtext, what's really going on in their life? How would you do that?
Yeah, it's the $1 million question, and there's no.
I know. I'm asking it because I know a lot of the coaches who are listening to this, they will ask that question, and I know that.
So how do you do that? I call that a break in transparency. How do you orchestrate a break in transparency? That's the way I was taught it. Is normally, we're looking at the world through our filters, through our belief systems and our worldview and our history and our blah, blah, blah identity that we've created. And it's all transparent. It's invisible that we're looking through all these things. So how do you orchestrate a break in transparency where suddenly they see the blueprint of their soul that they're looking through? That's the skill of coaching. I think the first thing is by being present. We've talked about that. So being in the moment. And if you're in the moment, then you can notice and pick up on things that you otherwise wouldn't, You can, what was that, Zoran? I just noticed you looked over there, what just happened for you, Now that will bring them into the present. That will throw them into a different place, and they might, see something differently. So something physical,
Mm-hmm.
What's this hand saying? What's this hand saying, Zoran?
Yeah.
What else? I've said to some coachees, so we're talking about this, and this, and I'll name the superficial stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll say, but I'm also picking up this from you,
Mm.
And what is that about? Can you tell me what that's about?
Yeah.
Or this morning I was coaching somebody and they said, we were talking about, how they were going to approach their leadership differently. And then he started talking about skiing, and he was talking about, he's going on a skiing holiday and he's excited about it. And typically he goes flying down the hill, but he's 55 now. So he's going to learn to be a bit more elegant and just, sway back and forth a little bit like this. And I was like, this is interesting. So this one, it strikes me that what you were talking about in your leadership is very similar to what you're talking about in the skiing here. How would that look if you were to be doing this at work, a bit more elegant, back and forth? So you're just looking for different ways, because they're all, this is not random. He is talking about that skiing as a direct result of what he was talking about in his leadership. He's exploring, but sometimes it requires you to make that connection and ask him.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I do it. I mean, I just look for.
Beautiful. I think that's very important for people to just to see your take on it, and also to have courage to do it. Even younger coaches or coaching for the top of their game in the mastery sometimes don't have enough. I found enough courage to confront that, to call it in a way, but they would go alongside with the client to make them happy, to please them, to make them feel good. And certain things that people are not sharing, they're actually tough and challenging, and you need to look into them, and there can be patterns and beliefs and brackets that you have to transform in order for you to be able to move forward. But if nobody, it's there to help you illuminate that, to say, look at this, look at this, look at this hand. What you're saying is this. Then the repetition of that same cycle will go on and on and on and on. And I think that courageousness of being able to call it's super important in coaching, giving yourself permission, right, to do it.
Yeah, that's right. And I think if you're not leading them in that moment, if it's a true exploration and you're truly exploring together, they'll take it. They'll explore with you. If they feel like you have a judgment which you've decided about them, which is what I used to do, by the way, and this was part of my MCC accreditation journey. That was my main thing, was how to move from leading to not leading, to genuinely exploring with the coaching, because I was leading all the time.
And how did you manage to do that? Let's just bookmark that one. I mean, if you can recall it, because that's a common challenge. That's a challenge for me as well. I was able to see people like you because I perceive myself to be intuitive empath. So even in the business scenarios, I will be able to intuit and use my empathical skills to be able to read the room, read the people before they were able to understand themselves. I was able to get to what I need. So that was a superpower, but in coaching also challenging, because naturally I would lead them. I would say, now you need to go this way, and then you need to go this way. And if you do this, then you're going to become that. If you don't stop doing that, you're going to be, you know what I mean? So it's one of these things that, it's super challenging in coaching, right? Especially in the level of mastery, how not to lead and how not to judge. So I was just curious if you can recall, how did you manage to train yourself and help yourself navigate that landscape of not leading?
Yeah. I always say, if you want to stop leading in coaching, the best thing you can do is lead. Try it. Lead all of your coaching sessions for a week and see how it goes, because it's painful, and I was kind of lucky in the sense that when I did my MCC accreditation, I was reaching a point of frustration in my coaching where I was realizing that all my bright ideas, even if they were 100% accurate, and all of my great insights were just not serving the coachee. The value was not being perceived and owned by the coachee to the extent that I wanted it to be. And so it was just painful. It was like any change in habit. It was painful before, and I realized my tools weren't working and I had to change. And I still get these moments, I'm sure you do in coaching, where it's just like you get this brilliant idea, brilliant insight. Put it to one side. Just hold it lightly. That's back to the humility, just allow yourself to be, an observer, a little bit, naive and curious, and just follow that through and just don't allow yourself. And if at the end of the session, sometimes if it doesn't come out, you can say, look, I've been sitting on this insight for the past half an hour. Can I share it with you? It very rarely has a huge impact on my perspective. Yeah. It just doesn't work. So if you want to stop leading, stop trying not to lead and just lead. Yeah. Because it doesn't work.
I love it. I love what you shared right now. I think this is a brilliant way to kind of understand it. And I also love what you shared, that from my experience as well, it really doesn't work, because the other human being, no matter how well-intended you are, if this doesn't come outside of themselves, if they don't shift inside out, we can give them more advice in the world, they will not take it, or they will not follow through. So it really does work.
Exactly. And especially if you're operating with senior leaders, they are by definition stubborn, they are by definition self-reliant and driven, and they want to do stuff, and they want to figure stuff out.
Yeah, exactly. And from my experience with the senior leaders, which is your target group, CEOs and top teams and executives, this creating this space for them to hear themselves thinking and for them to feel how they really feel, and then for them to be able to have enough sparring partnership to be able to understand where they want to go forward, is much more valuable than any insider advice.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's another thing, Zoran, which I just thought of, which is that I learned through the MCC accreditation process, and that is, and you just reminded me with the space, the space thing, that there's a rhythm to coaching mastery which is different from the rhythm of everyday life for me. And everyday life is becoming more and more staccato, more and more, off this call, onto the next call. What do you think of this? Come on, let's get it. What's the action? What's the plan? And sometimes people come into the session like this. And I learned through the MCC accreditation process that coaching is more lounge music than staccato, Not always. Sometimes it's like, right, I need a plan for this, in which case you sit forward and right, so what's your plan? The energy is high, it's intense. But more often than not, what they actually need, because the environment, the world is so crazy, is they need someone who's sitting back and who's breathing deep and who receives what they say and allows it to resonate, and then comes back with hopefully something sensible or an interesting question. But the whole rhythm of it is very, very slowly. It's like a big old elephant, wandering around. And amazing stuff happens when you create that space for people, as you say.
Mm-hmm. What a wonderful way to complete this conversation. It's already 45 minutes of us chatting and talking about master coaching, but I love the poetry. I love the poetry because through mastery, it's also linked to art, and the art is all about poetry. And what you shared at the end is true poetry of coaching, like that moving into that full presence and helping people not be in the staccato energy all the time, but getting them to breathe in presence and be available. And I love the humor inside of it, coming up with something sensible to share. I would add from my perspective, one of the things that I love about mastery from my perspective is not taking life too seriously. Nowadays, when I'm in my true element of my master coaching presence, I do understand life is comedy, and I do understand that, the life is funny, and we tend to take life too seriously. And there is a little bit of that distancing or observation when we see this from a little bit more of hilarious point of view, and it becomes lighter because it's easier.
Yeah, that's right. And that comes with experience too, is just the lightness with which you can approach serious topics. Because as a coach, one of the things I think you can offer is the fact that you've heard it all. You've heard about the child who is self-harming or threatening, the parents with a knife or something. You've heard about children who've died. You've heard about, affairs. You've heard about everything. So nothing's like, oh my goodness, nothing's going to shock us. It's like, it's all okay. It's all normal. It's all human in this space. Yeah. And even just that, I think, is very therapeutic for people. But you're right, absurdity, a sense of the absurd is the highest level of wisdom, I think.
Yes. Thank you so much, Amos, for being here today, for sharing your presence with the listeners, for talking about mastery. As I said, at the beginning of this podcast, super important nowadays. And I'm so grateful for people who are showing up on this podcast week after week for your wonderful comments, likes, and, and engagement, basically. It's so good to have you as our community who is passionate about topics of personal development, and especially topic of mastering coaching. One last sentence, or how would you love to leave the audience, Amos? Anything it feels right to share right now to complete?
Whatever you choose to do in life, be a good one.
Whatever you choose to do in life, be a good one. Thank you so much. It's a good one. Thank you so much. See each other soon. Bye for now.
Thanks, Aaron. Bye-bye.